Hi, thanks for joining. I'm Cory, a solutions engineer at 7bridges. Today we discover Optimize, and in today's demo we start at the starting point, which is all about invoice ingestion. We're also going to give a brief nod to GL coding and how 7bridges can automate that experience for you. We start when it comes to Optimize by talking about invoices, transport invoices specifically. And we know that if you're like many of our customers, many people talking to us today, that the invoices you receive today are in multiple formats from multiple providers. They're messy, they're hard to pull apart, and they certainly aren't providing you with the level of information that you require to really make smart strategic decisions about your business. So today I want to focus on what happens once we've received an invoice and we've transformed it, where you can find it in the platform, the level of detail that's created as a result, and how granular we can really get. We're going to take the journey from Parcel all the way to specialty, just showing you different versions of the types of invoices that are ingested in the platform today. If you do have questions about the carriers we work with or have worked with and how we onboard carriers, there's a tremendous amount of information available in our knowledge base about our file format preference, the tools that we create, and what onboarding actually looks like for any of our customers. We hope that you'll be able to check it out. So let's go ahead and get started and introduce you into the platform. Well, first, let me welcome you to the 7bridges platform. For some of you, this will be your very first look at our technology. And just to get you a bit comfortable around what you might be seeing on the screen today, we won't be exploring all of the functionality of the platform today. We'll be zeroing in on the invoices function overall. But just to walk you through what you see on the left-hand nav, your sales representative has already, I'm sure, described to you that we do operate on two products that work harmoniously together: Optimize and Automate. And Optimize fundamentally takes advantage of network analysis, simulations, the dispute spend area, which is our audit module overall, as well as that invoices piece in the providers section. Provider UI is also covered in a future demo that you're able to go and take a look at, and is all about managing all those number of accounts that you have working on your network overall. The other elements not mentioned are all framed inside of our Automate product, which allows you to do seamless shipping straight from our product, with the ability to use AI intelligence to make sure that every single shipment goes on the right carrier at the right time with the maximum level of trackability as well. But today, like I mentioned, let's get started in invoices. Let's start the journey there, and let's get you going. Welcome to the Invoices Hub on the 7bridges platform. This is the area where you're able to come and take a look at all those invoices that have been ingested into the platform successfully. Now, it should be noted we've got a number of carriers within this demo environment, and that's on purpose, as well as a number of modes, because we're capable of being able to ingest across multiple providers, multiple modes, multiple geographies, multiple currencies. The platform's also been able to calculate, as you can see, your running tally of the spend on those invoices over the past 30 days versus the previous period. So a good way to just sanity check your investment ahead of even being able to jump into network analysis. Now, the 7bridges platform has also got a tremendous amount of search and filter functionality within it. We want you to be able to get to the invoices you care about. So to do so, we've got those filters, and we've got the ability to go and take a look at whatever variant that makes sense to you, whether it's a provider type in a specific account or straight down to an individual date range. There's also a search function that'll allow you to type any information into the search bar to return the appropriate invoice to your attention. We're going to start today's journey by taking a look at Parcel, because fundamentally Parcel's pretty easy to demonstrate. So why don't we jump in? We're going to pick on UPS here at the very top. And what you see now is the invoice summary. Now, if you're familiar with the Parcel world, and I'm sure you are, this happens to be from one of our retail-based customers. And in using UPS, they send out literally thousands of shipments inside a single invoice. The information you're about to see all summarizes a specific invoice and returns it back to you in a way that's easy for you to consume. So every single invoice will render the exact same way. It's easy to navigate by being able to toggle across the top between the basic info, the charges, and the GL coding. We're going to talk about GL coding in a minute. But at first, you see the billing information held true. So that's got all of your account and your billing information, as well as the invoice date. It's got a summary of the invoice charges that have all been pulled apart by going granular shipment by shipment to take a look at those individual charges themselves. The middle section here is our audit module going to work and taking a look at spend that we should be disputing. Now, when we talk about disputes overall, and there is a demonstration about audit specifically, the thing to try to understand is that as an invoice comes in, is ingested into the platform, we also hold your rate cards and contracts digitized within the platform itself. Every single shipment that sits inside that invoice is going to be pulled apart and quoted against our rates engine that holds your rate card. Any anomalies or anything that we see, we're going to flag as a spend alert, and that'll be brought to your attention so that you can then form and formulate a dispute within the platform. And we're going to show you how to do that in a subsequent demo. So I hope you'll tune in for that. In this particular case, a number of things have been spotted. So as it swept through the thousands of shipments that sit inside this invoice, there's been a number of duplicate charges. There's been a number of rate card discrepancies. Again, we'll cover that off as we talk about audit specifically. The section in the middle is the shipments themselves. Now, this is very much a PDF style view, but now we have the ability to click into any one of these individual shipments to see what's under the hood. What are all the details that correspond to that individual shipment? But already one of the value pillars is starting to come forward from 7bridges. You'll see a tracking status on the right-hand side. 7bridges is integrated via API to hundreds of carriers around the globe. So one of the core required data feeds that or data fields that need to come in and be present in your invoice is that tracking number. The second an invoice hits the platform, 7bridges is going to call out on each individual shipment to get a history of what's happened in that individual shipment itself. So in this case, we're looking at a summary screen where we can see tracked versus delayed. You might see some not delivered. You may see some still in transit. Finally, I said we were going to give a nod to automated GL coding, and here's the spot to do so. Every single invoice that comes into the platform has this feature that sits below it. In the standard version, so without purchasing the automated bolt-on, you have the ability to go and assign GL codes to each individual shipment that sits inside this invoice, or at the invoice top level. But it goes deeper than that. You have the ability to also code the individual charges that sit inside that invoice. So if you wanted to charge fuel, for example, to a different cost center than freight, then you have that ability to do so. Now, that's not saving the world in a manual sense. But if you want to take advantage of the bolt-on, 7bridges uses AI and technology and logic to be able to, as we mass ingest invoice, assign those GL codes straight away for you. This example is a customer who absolutely does that. So you can see there's been a number of 60 different codes today automatically assigned, clearing the entire invoice and freeing up hours and hours of accounts payable and finance time at year end to be able to make sure that charges are coded to the correct cost center in general ledger code. If you want to explore that more, we do encourage you to reach out. It's absolutely a life and time saver. But now for the big bit. Let's go in and investigate an individual shipment that sits inside this invoice itself to see the level of detail and the granularity that we can return as a result of doing so. So by clicking on any individual shipment within the shipment section, we're going to get to the next view, which is the shipment reference view. And right away, again, we want to make sure that it's really clear to you what the status of this delivery is overall. So in this instance, we're talking about a parcel that's going from New Jersey to California. We can see that it was dispatched on June 29th, and it's been delivered and signed for on the 4th of July. Other elements that you see in the header, we've got the tracking code automatically identified at the top. It talks about who's booked the shipment overall, what date it was booked on, who it was signed for, so solving for that proof of delivery need for many of our customers. Under the shipment information, we start to pull apart the invoice itself, and this becomes very advantageous as we start to do network analysis and do reporting for your network overall. So we see that this was a parcel, it was second day air. We know that it was shipped in an automatic fashion, so it was shipped actually using our platform overall. There's no Incoterms noted on the invoice itself, but had an Incoterms been identified, those would have been populated here. And then on the right-hand side of that shipment info, we've got a number of different pieces that again are being pulled through from reference numbers and purchase orders and sales orders, if they're evident, both within the invoice or integrated into any of your systems to fully populate that level of information. We start to see the contacts frame out as well. So that's the next section, and that starts to inform our lane analysis. So we can see that this is a US to US shipment, but should it have been global, again, we start to define the lanes that you're using and the costs and the performance that you're able to experience as a result. As we get deeper now, here's where the first bit of magic starts to happen as it relates to standardization of invoices. You'll all know that working with multiple providers, they often call similar charges different things, which, if you're an Excel person, and believe me, I love Excel, it's really, really tricky to do any trend or mapping analysis or spend analysis if simple naming and nomenclature isn't consistent. So 7bridges does a few things. One, we ingest your invoice in its natural format, and we call it whatever the carrier calls it. But the team also goes to work to set up rules and logic and AI and large language models to be able to convert what the carrier has called something to what it should be implied as. And in doing so, we're able to get things as simple as, let's just say, fuel surcharges, constant and consistent across all your carriers. So when it comes to your walkthrough of network analysis, you'll see that you can truly compare carrier by carrier and how they perform overall. Finally, we look at the load info and the tracking detail. So the load info, again, helps inform not just reporting, but also starts to frame up things around potential disputes as well. So as the audit module sweeps through your invoice, it's looking for a number of things. Is the charge incorrect based on your rate card? Have you been charged something because you've been misweighted? So again, source of truth becomes really, really important in terms of, is that billed weight consistent with what the actual weight is? And then in the tracking world, it becomes even more important because tracking for us, as I mentioned, gets pulled directly from carrier API data. We're able to return that as a milestone journey overall. And this sets up a few things. One, it helps to inform your performance reporting as it relates to network analysis, and you're able to see how your carriers are actually performing, not just based on service level chosen, but actual performance of what they're doing. So are those parcels being delivered within 2 days or aren't they? And if they're not, for how long? That also informs audit overall. So if there was an SLA or a contractual agreement around getting it there within the second day by noon, it offers up that spend alert capability. So we say this shipment hasn't arrived as per its contractual obligation, and a spend alert gets created as a late shipment. But very forward thinking organizations use this data at an entirely different lens, and they look at it to help inform what we call activity based emissions reporting. So there will be a separate module for you to be able to explore in that sense. We do emissions based reporting, all based on invoice and tracking data as well. Save it for a future demo. But it's important to note that if you're interested in being able to accurately showcase your emissions reporting capability, and being accurate, and then being able to do something with that information, you really should be looking at something that's activity based as opposed to cost based. So that is our world of parcel shipments overall in a good review. If you do have questions about what you've seen today or its applicability, do let us know. And the next stop is freight invoices. So see you at freight. Okay, we'll be able to pick up the pace a little bit now. You've got the core functionality of the ingest, the invoice, what it returns, the level of detail that's available to you. So let's just pop through another two examples. First, let's start off with freight. And similarly,
So now we're back to the invoice ingestion screen, and let's find ourselves a nice road freight invoice to take a look at. So now we're back to the invoice ingestion screen, and we'll pick this DSV invoice here. And now we've landed inside the DSV invoice summary, again, holding all that common information together, the billing and the invoice charges overall. Our spend alerts are now showing a few different disputes. Again, we'll cover those off in the audit module, but it's one to call out certainly that there's been an invoice or a shipment on this invoice where there was no established rate card. So a good indication for whomever the client is here that a procurement exercise might be necessary. Moving down into the shipments view overall, we can see that there are 4 shipments tied to this invoice. That's fairly common with our freight partners that we see. So unlike Parcel, there's fewer shipments on a freight invoice, but definitely higher value shipments. This particular customer overall has not subscribed, as you can see, to our GL coding automation, where you can see that 4 of the charges still remain uncoded. Now we go back into the actual shipment itself, and you can see that this particular shipment was dispatched on the 14th of June, arriving on the 21st of June. That same level of detail available as you saw in the Parcel invoice overall. So we've got who it was booked by on the date, who it was signed for on the other end. The shipment info, again, helping to start to get granular on the services being utilized. And now you see the addition of airway bills or master air bills or other documentation that can help give additional identifiers as we look into the world of network analysis. Again, our lane analysis is starting to frame up as we see those contacts. So where it was shipped from and to. And now the mapping of charges, so not uncommon from the Parcel view you saw, but freight providers are fairly well known for calling things specifically different things. So you can see, just as an example here, the temperature monitoring. We've now reduced that down and mapped that to just monitoring fees. So it'll be available in the platform in network analysis to really compare providers as it relates to the charges against monitoring overall. Again, the load information pulling through in this for many of our pharma customers becomes an important part as we're able to take a look at service offering and the kinds of shipping that's happening on freight overall. You can see temperature here has been requested at ambient. We've got now weight differentials, so the difference between the total weight as may be expected from the distribution facility packing this shipment versus what was billed. Clearly, the billed weight was chosen here as the total volumetric weight, which isn't uncommon when you look at pallet loads. Tracking information, again, similar to what you see in Parcel. So assuming that your freight provider has access to good milestone reporting capabilities through that tracking code, we'll pull it through on the platform. Again, framing up any service level disputes if the shipment were to take longer than the guarantee. And again, looking into both just performance, so knowing how quickly things move through your network, but also framing up that ever so important emissions layer as well. We can see now that, this is just additional tracking details, which is just from the scan in piece. And that's the conclusion on our freight invoicing. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And we'll conclude the ingestion demo talking about specialty invoices. And those of you who aren't familiar, perhaps, specialty couriers make up a pretty large portion of the invoices that we see in the platform today. Specialty couriers like CryoPDP, Markin, World Courier, Quickstat, BioCare, these are couriers that are very much focused on moving So again, back to the invoice ingestion screen in the hub, we're going to try to spot ourselves a world. So again, back to the invoice ingestion screen in the hub, we're going to try to spot ourselves a world. So again, back to the invoice ingestion screen in the courier invoice, and there's one, a third down, and let's take a look at what it's telling us. So now inside that summary view, you guys have all experienced this already through the other examples that's been provided. But again, the billing information, the invoice charges are holding in the same way and represented back to you. Spend alerts starting to form as the audit module sweeps through the invoice overall. We know that in the world of specialty, with the complexity of the shipment, there's likely to be some areas of improvement or some things that may not get spotted. Overall, we know shipments here, specialty courier shipments, we tend to see very few shipments on individual invoices as they're almost invoiced as shipped to keep things moving along. But in this case, we've got two shipments within this individual invoice. And again, now you can see in the GL coding space that this customer has subscribed to our automatic GL coding, and you've seen these two shipments have been already coded. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go take a look now at that individual shipment. So let's just pick the first one that's available to us in this invoice view. Go take a look now at that individual shipment. So let's just pick the first one. And now we're inside the World Courier invoice itself. You can see straight from the header that this is an air shipment, and there's a requirement for temperature control. We can see that it was dispatched on the 16th of June and delivered on the 19th of June. Again, the booked by, book date, and signed by all available for view and for collection. The shipment info itself, now we're seeing things like temperature controlled coming in. We see that the Incoterms in this particular shipment are DAP, and we're seeing additional information coming in from the order number and various references, as well as that emission score that we referenced earlier. As we look down into the actual invoice charges, again, that note that 7bridges will work to map these charges to make them comparable in network analysis. As you can see, just as a really easy example to spot in the world of packaging, on the invoice, it's referred to as packaging charge. We know, based on our relationship with the client, that they like to be able to report on whether it's rental or not. So this has been mapped down to packaging rental fees. Again, the load information is available to us, and we can see that two shipments went out on this, or two parcels, two specialty parcels went out on this shipment. There was a requirement for 2 to 8 degree cold chain. We see the corresponding weights and the tracking information, very similar to the other examples that we've provided today. Again, framing up those service level agreements to make sure that SLAs and KPIs are met when it comes to guaranteed service, but also being able to take a look through all the key milestone data to be able to get a better understanding of your network overall and how this particular carrier, World Courier in this case, is performing in that lane. Well, hopefully now you're a bit more comfortable with how 7bridges handles invoices, what they look like when they're ingested into the platform, and the level of granularity and tracking that we can get down to help really inform your network. In future demos, we'll walk through the world of audit, that provider user interface, as well as our network analysis reporting and the final journey and optimize around simulations. Should you have any questions about what you've seen today, do speak with your account executive and feel free to book a meeting with myself or one of the other solutions engineers who'd be more than happy to tackle any questions that you may have. Best of luck, and we hope to hear from you soon.